Hi.
Yeah, good morning.
My name is Shelley Goldbeal, and I am a Newfield and Shapley resident. So I've come, I was going to just listen, but I'm biting my tongue back there, and I have to do this. So I've never done this before, so please bear with me. In Shapley, I'm sure you're well aware of over a year, well, in 2006, Nestle put in some 16 test wells in Vernon Walker, which is a 4,000-acre wild refuge that the people, the state own. The reason why Newfield and Shapley residents got involved in this, because they were like, hey, we walked through there. We were never, told of any of this. They went to the DEP. The DEP issued them a permit, because that was the process that that's the regulatory approach that has to happen. We said, all right. Then I guess Nestle had offered them a certain amount of money. They didn't want to pay it to the state, so they came to Shapley, little rural North Shapley, and was looking at land there, at water to extract there. And we went to our town officials and we said, hey, we don't want this. This is a small town. We want our say, one way or the other. And the three selectmen were pro-extraction. For whatever reasons. And the majority of the citizens didn't want this. So we went to the planning board meetings. We worked with the planning board. We worked with the selectmen. We went to all the meetings, gave everybody, all our input and so forth, and nothing was done. A hydrogeologist was recommended by Nestle to form the ordinance, and the people weren't being listened to. So we tried to get another tough regulatory ordinance on the books, and we couldn't do that. The selectmen wouldn't let us. So we said, what's going on here? This, let's let the people decide whether they want it or not want it. Under the regulatory approach, if a company comes in right now under the regulatory ordinance of water extraction, if they dot their I's and cross their T's, then they have to grant that permit. Once they're in there, how do we get them out? I.e., look at Freiburg. The people of Shapley and Newfield wanted to say. They didn't want him in. If they didn't want him in, they didn't want a permit. They wanted to discuss it first and then go from there. We couldn't. We tried to get another ordinance, the rights-based ordinance, on the town warrant. The selectmen said, no, sorry, you're not going to have it. Thank God to a little research, we found a loophole in the law that we could have a notary call a special town hearing for the people, not the selectmen, and they would act as a select person, which we did. We had 240 people come out to that meeting and overwhelmingly vote in the rights-based ordinance because the select people were not listening to us. The one reason why I'm here today is because of the LD 663, and I do recommend changing it to control or prohibit water extraction, because in Shapley we were not listened to. We had no rights whatsoever if we didn't hit the pavement like we were hitting the pavement for over a year. Nobody was listening to us. It's all well and good if you have selectmen that listen. In Newfield, they said, fine, you guys aren't going to go away. We're going to put this on the ballot and have the people decide. But under the regulatory approach, that's not an issue. The regulatory approach, you have to grant a permit, as the DEP had to grant a permit to Vernon Walker. The only one other thing, because I could go on for days on this, but I went to a water hearing in Sanford just this past Monday, and it was a water committee, and it was very informative. And I asked one of the DEP people there, I said, okay, say these water extraction companies come in, these large scale, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the Boys Club, we're not talking about fire, we're talking about sale of water over the town line for profit, large scale water. I said, what happens if these extraction companies come in? I said, who monitors the levels and who monitors the quality? And they said, the extractor. I said, what? That's the fox, guarding the hen house, in my opinion. And I knew nothing of this. I'm just, a self-employed machinist, in Newfield, Maine, until all this came about. Somebody had asked about the 180-day moratorium. We went that way. We said to the selectmen, listen, slow everything down. Let's get a strong regulatory ordinance in place with, hours of operations, no trucks 24/7, going by the school, let's try to do different hours so the kids aren't involved. And we got a petition again to the select people because they wouldn't do the 180-day moratorium, and we asked them for the moratorium, and they had to put it on because of the petition. Again, they started another water ordinance, again, by a hydrologist that was recommended by Nestle, was not strict enough. We asked the select people, after that 180-day moratorium, to extend it another 180 days. We couldn't do that by petition. We did that the first time. The second time, it's up to the selectmen. They refused. Just to make a short note, that's why Newfield and Shapley was forced to go with the rights-based ordinance. The rights-based ordinance basically says it gives the control to the people so that they can either say yes or no. Some people say it's illegal. We follow the Constitution when we wrote it. We were forced to because under the regulatory approach we had no say whatsoever. And if I can just explain, hopefully I've explained the process to some extent on what we've gone through in Newfield and Shapley. And it's true, they don't come to Portland. They come to these small rural towns where most people are just too busy to get involved, and they just try to slide in the door. And I'm for people at least having the input, the citizens and taxpayers, either way, whether they want yes or no for their water extraction. And again, large-scale water extraction. Thank you for listening.